this music remind you of those intro, outro music themes from the early 80s to mid 80s? You know, the Cincinnati Reds radio network or the Cincinnati Red television network, when the announcer would come on and say, "It's time for baseball. Baseball is on the air." Yeah, that gated reverb, that synth sound. That's what I was going for. I've done organ intros and piano, ragtime, 20s style intros, outros, but I don't think I've ever done an 80s one. So I thought, why not? Because baseball is about to start and we are on the air. And this is the Cincinnati Baseball Historical Review podcast show. And of course, I am Cam Miller. And I hope you've been following along to my Team 99 and Team 64 podcasts, celebrating the 1999 and 1964 clubs, respectively. But besides this series of shows, and I'm going to do other team series as episodic teams like 1987 and 1981, 1919. But I also wanted a space where I could also just, do some short form audio docs / podcasts where we talk about memories, moments, anniversaries. And in this case, we're going to talk about the 100th anniversary of the tragic passing, the untimely death of Pat Moran, who in March of 1924 passed away right as spring training was about to begin. It was Saturday, March 1st, 1924, and Cincinnati Reds manager Pat Moran, along with catcher Gus Sandberg, outfielders George Burns and George Harper, along with business manager Frank Bell, and the newly appointed assistant manager Jack Hendricks. They got on the Queen and Crescent train, headed south to Orlando, Florida, and Tinker Field for spring training, right? Now, not long into the trip, Pat Moran begins to not feel so well. Upset stomach, kind of nauseous, not feeling good at all. And it seemed to get worse as the long voyage continued. So he didn't eat a bite in the train. And when the party arrived in Orlando and they checked into the San Juan Hotel, a doctor was called immediately, Dr. G.H. Edwards, who diagnosed Moran with gastritis and administered a shot so he could sleep because, he didn't think he'd be able to sleep because the pain was so intense. So Sunday comes, the 2nd, March 2nd, and it's just not getting any better. He's still in pain. The first day of spring training was to start Monday. So he was fighting to try to go to practice on Monday, but the doctor wasn't having it. By Monday night, March the 3rd, Moran's still pretty ill, and he's resting in his hotel room. And of course, the players are starting to arrive, wondering what's going on. So he was hoping to go to Tinker Field on Wednesday. He told the players, "Look, I'm going to get out to Tinker Field for practice Wednesday. For the morning workout, at least, we're going to try it." But the nurses came in and noticed his heart, his liver, his kidneys were all starting to give him trouble. So a new doctor enters the picture, Dr. McEwen, and out of Florida, and he's put in charge of his care. And he makes a different diagnosis. He says, no, he's got the severe indigestion. We're going to give him a week's rest. No visitors. Let's let him rest a week, going to administer some medication, and the only visitors he's allowed is, number one, assistant manager Jack Hendricks, and he's going to keep him abreast of the goings-on at spring training. So he's allowed to visit to keep him up to date in the Reds, and the Reds trainer, Doc Hoskins, who's familiar with Pat, so he's allowed to visit. Other than that, no media, no players, that's it. No exceptions. Now, Joe Tinker, a friend of Pat Moran, enters the picture, and he says he's fighting with the doctor and the Reds trainer, Doc Hoskins, and he says, we really need to get him in the hospital. He doesn't look good. Let's take him to Orange County General Hospital and get him some treatment. But the doctor says in the paper, and this is a quote from the Cincinnati Post from that weekend, he says, "Mr. Moran is slowly and gradually overcoming the indigestion. I do not think that his recovery would be hastened by going to the hospital. He's resting more quietly each day, and I believe that it will be better for him to remain in his quarters at the hotel, where he is receiving excellent care. I hope to have him on his feet and out on the field in charge of his team in about a week." But by noon on Thursday, March the 6th, Moran has taken a turn for the worse, and he's finally moved to Orange County General Hospital. And acting manager Jack Hendricks immediately wires the Reds owner, August Herman, and tells him to, hey, contact Moran's wife and 2 kids. They need to get to Orlando at once. It's not looking good. So meanwhile, a New York doctor comes into the picture later that day on Thursday, Dr. K.W. Draper, and he is put in charge. And he gives the Inquirer this report. Headline, "Condition is critical. Special dispatch to the Inquirer, Orlando, Florida, March the 7th. At 2 o'clock this morning, Dr. K.W. Draper, New York specialist, after careful examination of manager Moran, said that the next 12 hours will tell the tale, with every chance against Moran. He said Moran is afflicted with chronic nephritis, commonly known as Bright's disease, and there is very small hope that he will live through tomorrow. So fast forward to 1:30 in the afternoon on Friday, March the 7th, and Dr. Meredith Malloy, who is the attending physician at Orange County General Hospital, states that all we're trying to do now is keep him alive until his wife and 2 children arrive. Now, a nurse on duty that day stated to the newspapers, the Cincinnati Press, that Pat tried to get out of bed several times the night before, and he said he needed to get home to, quote, get the kiddies out of bed and some breakfast before they have to go to school, end quote. So he was not only in serious pain and in bad shape, he was also delirious and didn't really understand or know what was going on. So at 5 p.m. that Thursday, Pat's wife and kids arrive at the hospital, and they go into room 26 at Orange County General to find their beloved husband and father barely hanging on to life. An hour later, at 6:05 p.m., Patrick J. Moran passed away in the arms of his wife. And in the room at the time was friend and teammate Johnny Evers, who was manager of the White Sox at the time and rushed over from Winter Haven when he found out the news that Pat was in serious condition. Jack Hendricks, a couple doctors, nurses, and Tom Swope of the Cincinnati Post. So a day later, on March the 8th, Jack Hendricks takes over the club officially, and news started to spread throughout the baseball world. And, people were sending telegrams and making phone calls. Cincinnati comedian Happy Golden, for instance, was a very good friend of Moran, set up a fund. And this fund was to raise money to have a bronze tablet installed at Redland Field. Now, this is just a day after Pat Moran's death, and one of his friends is already, getting the ball rolling to get this memorial set up for his beloved friend and the Reds manager, Pat Moran. So Reds players attached black armbands the rest of spring training for their fallen leader. Workouts were suspended on Tuesday as Pat's funeral was taking place in his hometown of Fitchburg, Massachusetts, where he was buried next to his mother and father at St. Bernard Cemetery. At the funeral was National League President John Hadir, Reds treasurer Louis Widrig, and representing the players was Ivy Wingo and George Harper, who were pallbearers as well. So over the next few weeks, funds for the memorial tribute tablet, which was to be erected at Redland, reached $600. By midsummer, it was well over 1,000, with contributions coming in from all over the country. Fans, ex-teammates, friends, and so they had enough money to make this happen. So on August the 16th, 1924, a few months after Pat's tragic death, the bronze tablet was finished and affixed into the wall in the grandstand near the press gate by the Cincinnati Manufacturing Company. And on Monday the 18th at 2:15, Reds officials, along with Commissioner Judge Landis, New York Giants manager John McGraw, Moran's wife and children, dedicated the memorial tablet. And following the ceremony, the Reds and Giants went to the field of battle, and it was a battle that old Pat Moran would have been proud of. Trailing 6-0 in the 7th inning, the Reds staged a comeback. They scored 4 runs that inning, and then 2 more in the 9th to tie it. In the 17th inning, the Giants scored a run in their half of the inning to go ahead. But Reds pitcher Tom Sheehan, who came in to relieve Carl Mays all the way back in the 3rd inning, singled to lead off the bottom of the 17th. He was moved to second on a bunt and then went to third on a fly ball sacrifice before Ed Roush singled him home to tie the game once more. And then, as fate would have it, George Burns, one of Pat Moran's favorite players, doubled in Roush with the game winner. A scrappy comeback that was reminiscent of the never-give-up attitude displayed by Pat Moran. I look forward to bringing you more tales from Cincinnati baseball history. Remember to check out Team 64 and Team 99. The first episodes are already up and live, and those episodes will continue throughout the season. They will kind of follow the season. So opening week, you'll get new episodes. Episode 2 will be coming your way. So thank you very much. I'm Cam Miller. Thanks for listening.